Hello and welcome to the Center for Spiritually Integrated Arts, a Centers for Spiritual Living teaching center. I am Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson. I am the founder and the spiritual director. Now, as you are sitting there joining us, you may have questions, any number of questions, such as, who am I? How did I get here? Spiritually integrated arts means what exactly? What is a teaching center? Well, what is Centers for Spiritual Living? What is that? What does that even mean? Or New Thought, or religious science, or science of mind and spirit? You may have any number of questions about this specific community, about the parent organization, CSL, our philosophy, our teaching, our liberation theology. Any number of questions. Feel free to send an email. We look forward to connecting more and building our virtual community, our global community. And if you haven't connected yet on social media, feel free to do so. This is your invitation now. Also, did you know that all of our Sunday messages are archived on our YouTube channel? You can watch it anytime. Now, questions about anything, such as becoming a member. What does that mean? What does membership entail? And if you live somewhere far and already belong to a spiritual community, can you be a member of more than one? The simple answer is yes, you can. Just like you can shop at more than one grocery store, you can attend or be a member of more than one gym. We are building beloved community. So you can do both. You can be a member of both. You can be involved with both. That's what being in spiritual community means. So we welcome you. We invite you. We are so appreciative that you have found this community and that you have joined us today. We bless you. We love you. We welcome you. Live long and prosper. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the rest of our Sunday message. Love you. Connect with you soon. Blessings. Namaste and greetings as we conclude November with oh my. But oh my what? Well, oh my word. Oh my word. And we're going to get into what exactly we are referring to. But when we look more deeply into these ideas, these words, these concepts of mundane, sacred, profane, and everything else we talked about this entire month, we find that there truly is no difference or separation in them, technically, because the divine is all there is.
Now, once again, for linguistic purposes, we may use a variety of words to convey what exactly it is we are intending to convey for the purpose of communication. But in the same way that a watercolor painting uses water to blend the various and add the various colors, which becomes something altogether new, right? Because if you add red and you add blue, it becomes something that is neither one nor the other. It's not even just both and, it is actually something new because of the both and. It is both red and blue, which makes it purple, which is something new. So the mundane, the sacred, the profane, they blend because this idea of the waters of our mind, the waters of our consciousness mix all these various words and concepts and aspects of life into one divine painting, where it's neither mundane nor sacred nor profane, but mixed. It becomes not any one, not even all three. It becomes something new. So, oh my word, question mark, question mark. Everything is a divine expression of spirit. And yet, not every expression of spirit feels divine. Remember, we talked about that? The Klan, racism, sexism, etc. And while the divine is back of it, the outward expression of it feels anything but divine. Oh my word. So, how do we change it? How do we shift it? How do we heal it? Well, first, we have to be aware of how we're even using our words. Have you ever stopped to realize the amount of violent phrases we use, such as boots on the ground, right? It's army. They've landed on the boots on the ground. To kill two birds with one stone. We realize how many violent related phrases and words we use to convey concepts. And yet what we talk about is we want peace. We want there to be world peace. Oh my word. So if the words we're using aren't actually aligned with what we want to create, then how do we create what we want to create? In other words, what words do we use to be more life-affirming? Because see, we can choose either or, non-life-affirming or life-affirming. Consciously, we can choose. So what are we going to choose? To change the phrases and the words, no longer refer to things as mundane, profane, or sacred. It's all sacred. Now, what aspect of the sacred are we referring to? The inward expression, the outward expression? Does the sacred, is someone experiencing the sacred as sacred? Or are they experiencing the sacred as somehow sacrilegious, desecrated? Is that their experience of it? Then how do we heal it? How do we shift it? What are we invited to know in our awareness and our practice? Oh my word. Dr. Holmes invites us. The study of the science of mind is a study of first cause. In other words, spirit, mind, that invisible essence, that ultimate stuff and intelligence from which everything originates and comes. The power that is back of creation, the power that is infused in creation, the thing itself. The thing itself. As we study this thing called the science of mind and spirit, what we are studying is how to embody and access as our lived experience the thing itself. How do we live as the very embodiment of God? How do we live as the very embodiment of, to the degree that we understand that our thoughts create, our words create, our emotions and feelings fuel the creation, and then we act upon this. That's our mental equivalence. That is the study of science of mind and spirit. To what degree are we studying it? Are we studying it simply to be able to, like math, simply to be able to add and subtract, simply to be able to balance a checkbook? Or are we ready to dive in and become like mathematicians? Mathematicians and physicists who have such a grasp of numbers and equations that we are able to also send people to the moon and beyond. Breathe. Word. We use them. But if I were to ask you to define what is a word, what is the definition of word? Do you feel capable of giving a definition? Don't worry about it. There's no test today. Word. A single, distinct, yet meaningful element of, they say, speech or writing. Doesn't have to be speech, could be signed. But an element of communication via speech, writing, sign language, used with other or sometimes alone to form a sentence, and typically shown with a space on either side of when written or printed. And when spoken, there's a slight pause. So there's still a space, an element of air to where we can distinguish between one word and the other word. Now, why is that significant? Because there's a lot of talk about words in our consciousness. There's a lot of religious or theological, from the Bible, we learn your word, God's word, is a lamp unto my feet, a light unto my path. Your word. In the beginning was the Word was God, the Word was with God. The Word became flesh. Sanctify them by truth. Your word is truth. Your word is your bond. Now, everywhere you see your, make it you. Is your word a lamp unto your own feet or the feet of another? Is your word a light unto your own path or the path of another? Can you sanctify another by truth because your word is anchored in and spoken from that place of truth and principle? When you use your word, is it your bond? It also says in the Bible in Proverbs, life and death are in the power of the tongue. Okay, life and death in the power of your tongue. Matthew says, but what comes out of the mouth comes from the heart, and it is that which defiles the person. And this is in reference to when people were, talking to Jesus, challenging Jesus about what people eat. And Jesus was like, look, it ain't got nothing to do with what you eat. What you eat doesn't defile you. It's what comes out of you. What comes from your heart is what defiles you. So be mindful of what's in your heart, for that comes out in the words you speak. Now, taking this into account, what words do you speak? If we go back to our concept of mundane, sacred, and profane, how are your words aligned with either of those concepts, just for the sake of conversation? Do you speak more mundane terminology, profane terminology, sacred terminology? When you speak, when you use your words, do they bless or do they curse? Do they build up or do they tear down? Now, this concept of you have the power of life and death in your tongue. In what ways do you communicate? That is your tongue. So it's not just it's not just the thing that sticks in you, right? It's not just that. All of the ways that you communicate, all of the ways, whether spoken, written, a text message, an email, sign language, sending an emoji, sending a meme, or some other kind of image. You know how people will say on Facebook or social media, share a picture that has purple in it from your phone gallery or photo gallery with no explanation. Just share it to change the energy of Facebook or whatever they'll say. So, an image, a photograph, whatever it is that you are resharing. So, Tracy shares something on her page that I then share. That's me communicating something, or vice versa. And of course, our body language communicates. Now, what happens if all of this now becomes your tongue based upon the quote before? You have the power of life and death in your text messages. You have the power of life and death in the emojis that you share and send. Does it change the energy to become more mindful of what exactly am I communicating? What is the energy that I am communicating? Why? What is my intention in communicating that? What is my why, my reason for? Ultimately, why do we communicate? To build relationship, to build connection, to come closer to whomever we are speaking in order to get something, give something, find something, share something. Information getting, information giving. It's all kinds of reasons, but ultimately we communicate in order to commune, to connect. So, what is your communication connecting you? Who is your communication connecting you to, and in what way? Adrienne Marie Brown says, do you already know that your existence, who and how you are, is in and of itself a contribution to the people and the place around you? Oh, my word. Breathe. Pause. Who you are and how you are in and of itself contributes to the people and the environment around you. Not after or because you do some particular thing, but simply because of the miracle of life that you are. You make a difference. Oh, my word. Adrienne Marie Brown goes on to say, there is no way to repress pleasure and expect liberation, satisfaction, or joy. So pause and think about, in terms of self-care, do you care about yourself? Do you nurture yourself enough to bring pleasure into your life, however that shows up? The foods you eat, are they pleasurable? Or are they just The things you watch on television, do they bring pleasure, or are they something to pass the time? Or back to the violent ways that we communicate. I'm just watching this to kill time. Why are you trying to kill time? Right? Do you bring pleasure? The clothing that you wear, does it bring you pleasure? Because we cannot expect liberation, peace on earth, satisfaction, and joy if we are denying ourselves pleasure. Being, feeling, expressing, embodying God should feel pleasurable. It's not work. It's simply being who and what you are. Do you derive pleasure in that? Do you feel the love of that? In how many ways do you speak of the love you have for yourself, the love you have for life, the passion you have for expressing the divine that you are? How do you communicate that in all of those ways that we talked about: body language, emojis. How do you share that deep, pleasurable, joyful, blissful existence of Source, the thing itself, as you breathe? So I'm getting ready to nerd out because you know I love my movies. So one of my favorite movies is the remake of the film Dune, or the story Dune, the book Dune. It's a remake recently done. Part 2 comes out soon. And in the mythology of Dune, there is this ability that certain people have to use their words to create. And there's a blog post where they say in the 1984 movie, Paul tells his army that what he's training them in, is part of the weirding way. And they use this thing, which was introduced by the director of that film, this weirding module, which amplifies the voice and turns particular words into sonic beams that they can use, it's like a laser beam, to fight the armies. Now, in a more archetypal way, these words, like the Sanskrit words Om or Om, believed by Hindus to be the primordial sound, the primordial seed sound of creation. Now, in the 2021 version of the movie, there is no weirding module. However, Paul Atreides is still able to use his voice, the voice, to control others. Essential here is the tone in which he uses, and using it in the wrong tone, the wrong method, the words are simply words. They don't do what it is. They're ineffective in manifesting. Now, this idea of words can shape reality is nothing new. Words being the equivalent to a form is a very ancient and pervasive concept. It goes through a variety of mystical traditions. Magic and mysticism were frequently, and still are frequently, associated with words, with language, and even individual letters. In the practice of Kabbalah, the Hebrew words, the Hebrew letters, have power in and of themselves. Aleph. They have power just in the letter itself. It's one reason why speaking the name of, the name that God gave Moses on the mountain, the actual name isn't spoken. It's turned into Yahweh. The actual name, Yod He Vav He, has power. And so many people, specifically Jews, will refrain from actually using the word of God, the name of God, because it's too powerful to even speak. We don't write it, we don't speak it, we don't know. That's why we use Yahweh, right? That's it's too powerful. It's too powerful a thing to wield. So it's not wielded at all. Yet, one of the closest concepts would be this idea, Neville Goddard says, thoughts create reality in the most literal way. Dune says words are equivalent to form. Thoughts are things. So words truly are a powerful tool. For with them, we can create or destroy the power of life or death. We can lift up or tear down. We can hurt or we can heal. What exactly are we doing with our words and the energy of our words? Thomas Troward says, because I am what I am, I may be what I will be. Sorry, I had a Popeye moment where I am what I, okay, sorry. Because I am what I am, I may be what I will be. which takes me back to, so remember that name of God. The English quote unquote translation that is most often used is I am that I am. Yod He Vav He. I am that I am. But a more accurate translation that I learned from several Jewish friends is I am that I am ever becoming more. Someone once said, in order to become who you truly can be, you have to let go of who you think you are. My individuality is one of the modes in which the infinite expresses itself. And therefore, I am myself, that very power which I find to be the innermost within all, within the innermost within of all things. Breathe. Do you feel the very power that you are? This infinite that is expressing itself in, through, and as you, that is moving you into being more and more and more and more of what you truly are, the universe in expression. Oh my word. Have you ever heard someone say, usually it's a person of color, an African American, say, you spoke a whole word, word, or word up? Did you know that all of this comes from the African American oral tradition, which is rooted in the belief in the power of one's word? The African concept of nomo, the word, is believed to be the force of life itself. To speak is to make something come into being. Once something is given the force of speech, it is binding. Hence, the familiar saying, your word is your bond. Word is born. Word up, word up, word to the mother. Breathe. How are you using your word? Are you using it in the same way that many of these concepts are conveying, that your word has power? So what happens when we no longer refer to things simply as mundane and we surrender that and recognize the sacred right there? Dr. Holmes says, spirituality is a constant, consistent attempt to feel the presence of God in everything and everyone. Yep, there's a remix. Reverend Ray says, spirituality is a constant, consistent attempt to feel and express the presence of God as ourselves. As ourselves. This is one reason why when we look at various marginalized communities, we find this very thing as this is why LGBTQ individuals, the community, seeks to express, to be who and what we are fully and freely. Sorry for that minor technical glitch. So do we need to go back for a second? Let's go back for a second. As I was saying, this is one reason why those in the LGBTQ community, why we seek to have self-actualization, to be ourselves without the oppression and suppression of our full expression of all of the intersectionalities that we are. And this applies to all marginalized. In the same way that Toni Morrison says, all paradises, all utopias, all worlds that work for all are designed by the people who are not there, by the people who have been blocked and not allowed in. So what if creating a world that works for all precisely means that all of those marginalized individuals and communities must be part of the conversation, part of the construction team, the visioning team. What changes when all of us are invited into the space to create a world that works for all? It changes the way we communicate. Because if I've never had a conversation with a transgender person, then how do I build relationship with a transgender person? And some may say, well, why would I need to? Why would I want to? Why wouldn't you want to? In a world that works for all, now this doesn't mean, because many who are in the whole diversity, equity, and inclusion realm, many, not all, many believe that you build community, you build whatever it is by going out to get them. We got to recruit the transgender people into, we got to recruit the Black folks into. That's not how you build community. Community is relationship. So if you want a world that works for all, then it means being open and willing to be in relationship with those who you currently may not be in relationship with. Do you have deep and meaningful conversations with friends who are not your skin color, not your ethnicity, not your religion, not your political affiliation? How do we recognize that there are boundaries to those relationships? It's almost like the story of, the Tower of Babel. At one time, we spoke the same language, and then, due to this event, now we were scattered, different languages, and the inability to communicate. Well, there are people who speak English. Two people, both of them speak English, and yet they are speaking past one another. They're not talking to one another. They're not communicating with one another. They're talking at, which means they're speaking beyond, past that person. How do we build relationships so that we are literally and actually communicating with and to one another, so that we build a world that works for all, so that we see the sacred, so that we heal? Mark Nepo says, perhaps the divine nature of things is disclosed to us through our humanity, moment by feeling moment. You know how oftentimes, once again, based on language, we talk about our humanity and our divinity, and we put them in two different Tupperware dishes. Are we a human being having a human experience, or are we a human being having a spiritual experience? Or are we a spiritual being having a spiritual experience that we simply call human? The manner in which we talk about our lives transforms our lives. So, how do you experience your divinity in the midst of your humanity? Dr. Sean Ginwright, in an interview with Brene Brown, she's talking to him regarding his new book, The Four Pivots, Reimagining Justice, Reimagining Ourselves. And he says, and so I just push people to suggest that even in the language that we use, that we should begin to lean into words and phrases and terms that saturate our consciousness with the world that we want. Pause. The world that we want, a world that works for all. Maybe that's too much. Maybe that's too much to even envision right now. Cool. A world at peace. Can we start there? Is that too much? Okay, so what about a country at peace? What about an aisle-less Congress and Senate, where there is no division. Can we start there? Where do we start? Wherever that is, get so clear about what that is that we then are able to lean into the words that literally saturate our consciousness with that vision so that every word we speak is in alignment with that. Therefore, it creates it. Okay? He goes on to say that we want the presence of something, not the absence of. Health is not just the absence of illness. Peace is not just the absence of war. Peace is its own thing. Remember those watercolors? It becomes something new, something altogether different. It's no longer this or that. So, how do we transition away from the consciousness of war? Once again, how do we decolonize our language so that we are no longer using violent words and terms? How do we decolonize our language so that we're no longer using ableist terms, such as, since you asked, blind leading the blind? That's an ableist term. It fell on deaf ears. That's an ableist term. So, how do we start to change all of the manner in which we communicate without it becoming work? Like, oh my goodness, Ray, you want me to change? Be present. There are times that I still find it rolling out of my mouth and, ooh, and it's in hindsight. Oh, yeah, I did it. I said it. Yep. Yep. So our awareness catches it. And then we become more mindful so that, can I find a different way of phrasing, a different way of expressing what it is I'm actually aiming to express without using these particular words in this particular configuration, which is ableist or sexist, racist, or whatever it is? How do we lean into and saturate our minds with the consciousness, saturate our consciousness with the very thing that we desire to be, to do, to have, the world that we desire to create? The ways in which we communicate, the words we use, demonstrate ways in which we have departed from the truth. And Dr. Holmes says, to desert the truth in our hour of need is to prove that we don't know the truth. So today we are invited to recalibrate our awareness of and embodiment of the truth to such a degree as to transform not only our individual lives, but the collective as well. There is a global cry for healing. Are we ready to heed the call? The ways in which we communicate, the words that we use, they demonstrate to us the ways that we have departed from the truth. When I refer to myself in judgmental or critical ways, I have departed from the truth of my being. Why am I judging? Why am I criticizing myself? Now, one can give a critique that is judgment free, that is guilt and shame free. Critique. It is noticing where there is room for quote unquote, improvement, and then making said improvements. How do our words demonstrate? What words are we using that are the expression of, I've departed from the truth? I don't have time to take care of myself. You've departed from the truth. I'm so busy, I don't have time for a vacation. You have departed from the truth. I'm so, pick a thing. I'm so fat, so something, so broke, so poor, so you've departed from the truth. So let's recalibrate, get back into alignment with the truth of our being, and live from there. Move from there. Saturate our consciousness. This week's affirmation declaration, I will say it first. If it resonates with you, say it with me on the second go round. Every aspect of my life is a sacred expression of spirit. Breathe. Together. Every aspect of life. Every aspect of life. Every aspect of life. Every aspect of my life is a sacred expression, demonstration of spirit. Every aspect of my life is a sacred expression and demonstration of spirit. Every aspect of my life is a sacred expression and demonstration of spirit. Every aspect of my life is a sacred expression and demonstration of spirit. Because every aspect of life itself is a sacred expression and demonstration of spirit. And so it is. This week's Thursday night questions, or your own personal journal questions. What aspect of life is hardest for you to remember oneness? Or what aspects of life are hardest for you to remember oneness? How can you practice self-compassion and self-love this week? How can you bring more pleasure into your life? Number 3, where are you being called or invited to be more present in your own life and or in the world? Number 4, where do you see a blending of the sacred, the profane, and the mundane in everyday life? Just for the sake of conversation. I know we spent this entire Sunday message talking about, let us stop breaking these words into separate compartments. Let us speak. Yeah, I know. But for the sake of conversation, because it's part of the practice, how do we identify the various colors and see the blending of those colors in our everyday lives? Number 5. What is coming to the surface in yourself that you have previously been unwilling to look at? And what are you invited to do to heal it and to release it? And then lastly, how is all of this reflected in the ways that you communicate? Breathe. And we enter into that space of prayer, recognizing the isness and allness of the divine. We allow this word to manifest. And this word that we speak, this word that we align with, this word that is the very saturated consciousness in expression, this word speaks peace. This word speaks joy. This word speaks the wholeness, the perfection, and the completeness of our lives, our physical selves, our emotional selves, our intellectual selves, our financial selves, our relational selves, and our spiritual selves. It's every aspect of us. And we speak this knowing that there is a balance, there is an alignment, there is a wholeness, perfection, and completeness in all of this. We are healthy in body, mind, and spirit. We are healthy in our relationships. We are healthy in our stewardship of money. We are healthy. We are well. And as we know this for ourselves individually, we know this for the collective as well. As Fannie Lou Hamer says, As I liberate myself, it liberates others. As I love myself, that love liberates others. As I heal myself, that healing liberates and heals others. So we speak this word of bliss and joy and laughter and pleasure to such a degree that simply waking up has orgasmic wonder as we see the new morning, as we see the sunset, as we take that next bite of whatever it is we are eating and that next sip of whatever we are drinking, that the orgasmic joy of being alive is present. And the law says yes, which means it's already in motion, it's already forming, it's already present fully in the mind that is God. And if it's already present, then that means it's already answered. And so I stand back and marvel at the way that the universe itself shows answered prayer, as it shows itself as the very expression of my life and the lives of those around me, as it shows itself as a world of peace, as a world of joy, as a world without borders and boundaries, without walls, a world of community. That's what is manifesting now. And it's already so. And so together we come together, we affirm, and we declare this by saying, and so it is. Namaste, blessings, much love and appreciation. It's almost December. See you next month.